Now we're getting nice and cozy, ready for another book tag. Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, I'm Kayla, and today I'm going to do the quite popular mid-year book freakout tag. I know it is currently like almost the end of July, but I thought I would get this in as soon as I possibly could before August hits, because let's face it, it's already going past the mid-year mark, so this is probably like my only chance to do it. So if you haven't seen this tag before, basically there's just a bunch of questions relating to the books that you've read in the first half of the year. I've seen this video a lot and people seem to do it every year, and I wanted to do it this year, and naturally, because I am late to everything, here we are. Also, I don't know if you can hear that, but my cat is trying to get into the spare room again. He's too clever for his own good. He knows how to open the door. He jumps up and pushes the door handle down. I'm not kidding. I've seen him do it. I'm realizing the lighting in here is absolutely awful. There we go. I think that's a little bit better. Okay, so number one is the best book that you've read this year. For this one, I'm just going to go through the stack of books that I have beside me, because there's a couple. But for this one, I've gone with Great Goddesses by Nikita Gill. How beautiful is this cover? Let's just take the time to mention that. This is, I guess you'd say, like verse and short stories, but about the Greek gods and goddesses, but also her interpretation of what she believes their lives were like and what they could have been like in modern times. It's very, very well done, and I absolutely loved it, because I love anything that's related to poetry or verse usually, but this just was so beautiful and so well written. I honestly loved it, and it gave me inspiration to get back into writing my novel as well. But yeah, so I would say that this is one of the best books that I've read this year so far. Number two is the best sequel that you've read so far this year. For this one, I have gone with The Dragon's Heart by Alicia King. I've been reading this series along with a bunch of people over on Instagram, and I absolutely love this series. It is definitely something that I would have been writing when I was younger. It's something that I would have loved to have read when I was younger, just because it focuses on not necessarily urban fantasy, but like fantasy thrown into your normal world, but it's not our present day. It's like set in a different time. Anyway, it's an awesome book, and the first one was great, but the second one blew the first one out of the water. I honestly enjoyed the second one so much more, just because we got to see a lot more abilities and a lot more powers and a lot more characters, and we got to focus on more of the world rather than what was happening to our main character. The first book is The Order of the Rose, and it follows a young girl who is realizing that her family are part of this Order of the Rose, who all have magic and powers, and there's just a whole lot that she doesn't know, and she has grown up basically in an orphanage, not knowing anything about her family or her history, and then it turns out that she's got a lot of people after her. But it is honestly so much more than that. There is like so much magic and so many amazing characters. Alicia manages to make this series so fantastic. It is just awesome, and it's a lot of fun. It's very quick and fast paced, and I definitely enjoyed every second as I was reading it, and I cannot wait for her third book to come out. Number three is a new release you haven't read yet but you want to. For this one, I'm going with A Song of Wraiths and Ruin. I know barely anything about this book except that so many people love it, and it is very hyped up on the Bookstagram and Booktube community, that I know I am probably going to love it. But it is definitely a new release that I would like to read at some point soon when I get my hands on it. Number four is your most anticipated release. For this one, I'm going with the next installment in the Nevermore series. That is Hollowpox by Jessica Townsend. I love this series, and it's definitely getting me into reading more middle grade. Nevermore, I would kind of combine with like Alice in Wonderland and Harry Potter, but it is a lot different, and it is very whimsical. We follow our main character, Morrigan Crow, who finds out that she's cursed when she's 11 years old, that she's meant to die, and then she gets whisked away to the land of Nevermore by our wonderful, amazing character Jupiter North, who I like to compare to as like the David Tennant Doctor Who. He just reminds me so much of Doctor Who. Anyway, so he whisks her away to Nevermore, and she has to participate in a bunch of trials in order to get into this school where she'll be able to stay in Nevermore and not have to go back home to meet her fate. So I think this is like a trilogy. I don't know if it's actually going to be a series, but as far as I know, it's a trilogy, and I really do want to read the next one. I just love it because it's so whimsical and it's a lot of fun, and I love the characters, and I love the world. It's crazy, but I love it. Number 5 is your biggest disappointment. For this one, I am going with Peter Pan. I have set myself a challenge or task to read a classic at least each month, if I can manage. Peter Pan I read a couple of months ago because it was definitely on my list and because I love this edition. It's gorgeous, but I really did not like it. I hated it. It was so crappy. I guess it was just not what I expected, and it was quite dark, and all the adaptations that I'd seen of it, I guess I expected so much more than what I got, and it was very disappointing. I definitely had high hopes that this was going to be a book that I was going to enjoy because I like the story of Peter Pan. I obviously don't love the story of Peter Pan, but I liked it enough to want to actually read the original book, and it just did not meet my expectations. I was very disappointed, and I'm really sad about that. Number 6 is your biggest surprise. For this one, I'm going with Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman. I guess I was very surprised by this because I didn't expect to love it as much as I did. Like I went into it thinking, oh yeah, I'm probably actually going to enjoy this because I want to learn more about Norse mythology, because all I had known previously was what I've seen on Vikings or what I've seen through Marvel movies. But I didn't actually know much more than that. And when I read this, I was just amazed. Like, I was learning so much, and it's basically Neil Gaiman's, I guess, translation, and he's pieced together a bunch of more well-known Norse mythology stories, I can imagine. And sorry, this lighting again is going really, really crappy. Where was I? Yeah, so I didn't expect to love this as much as I did. I learnt a lot. There were so many stories and so many amazing moments in this that I really enjoyed, and it actually has made me want to pursue learning more about Norse mythology, and I feel myself getting more interested in the Norse gods and Vikings. There's just something about it that really intrigues me. So I was definitely very much surprised by this because I didn't expect to actually kind of be bordering along obsessing about learning more about Norse mythology and Vikings and all of that. So yeah, the biggest surprise. Number 7 is my favorite new author, which again, I'm probably going to go with Neil Gaiman. I think I read one of his books maybe a couple of years ago, but that was like a really short book. I think it was The Sleeper and the Spindle, but that's the only other one I've read. And he's definitely an author that I would like to read more of, and I've definitely discovered a lot more about his writing by reading Norse mythology. But I do want to read more of his stuff. He's definitely a writer I can find myself really enjoying. I love his way with words. There's just something about it that's kind of poetic and magical, and I am intrigued. I want to read more of his stuff. So if you have any recommendations for more Neil Gaiman books for me to read, please let me know. I have Stardust there to read as well, so that might be my next option. But yes, favorite new author is probably Neil Gaiman. Number 8 is my newest fictional crush, which I'm going to have to go with Nikolai from the Shadow and Bone trilogy. Don't mind me while I get the books. So he comes into Siege and Storm, which is the second book in the trilogy. And then he's also got his own book, which is King of Scars. And I am determined to read Crooked Kingdom so that I can actually start King of Scars, because apparently I'm not supposed to start King of Scars until I've read that one. So I will be holding off reading that until I've read Crooked Kingdom. But Nikolai is definitely one of my newest crushes at the moment. There's just something about his personality that I absolutely adore. He's got the right kind of sass. He's just very cocky, and I love that. He's the typical kind of guy that I would like to read about and crush on when I'm watching like movies or reading like romances and things like that. So yeah, newest fictional crush would be Nikolai Lancel. Number 9 is my newest favorite character, and for this one I've gone with Bryce Quinlan from House of Earth and Blood. I read this a couple of months ago and I could not put it down. I absolutely entranced by this book. I mean, I am trash for Sarah J Maas, let's face it, but this one is definitely my favorite of hers now. I loved it, and it was brilliant. The characters were amazing. The story was fantastic and constantly keeping me on my feet. And I just feel like Bryce is a character that I really admire, and it's not because she's perfect, because she is far from perfect. But I love how confident she is within herself and how she doesn't let anybody bring her down. She is the kind of person who accepts her faults and acknowledges what's wrong with her. She's that kind of person who will be like, yes, I know I have faults, I know I have my problems, but deal with it. And I love that. I love that she's flawed. That's my favorite thing about Bryce, that she's flawed. She's not a perfect character. Number 10 is a book that made you cry, and I'm going with House of Earth and Blood again, because in the first 50 pages I was a mess, and then I don't know what point it is. I think it's like a little over halfway or something. If you've read this, you'll know what I'm talking about. But that scene where certain somebody does a certain something wrong and we get very angry about it, at least I know I did, because I nearly threw the book. That particular part made me get teary in anger because I was so pissed off at this particular character. I was very mad at them. I got over it, but I was mad and I was upset and I was teary. So this book definitely made me cry more than once. Number 11 is a book that made you happy. I was in a bit of a reading slump last month, so I needed to read something to get me out of it, something that was light and fun and romantic. So I read Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas. This was awesome. This was definitely the right smutty romance that I needed to read. We have our main character who ends up moving in with her boyfriend's dad because they want to save money so that they can move and get their own place and whatnot, what young couples want to do. Her and her boyfriend end up having a lot of issues and problems, and she ends up getting attracted to the father who is like 35, 37, something like that. He's in his late 30s anyway, and she's only 19, so it's one of those like older guy romances. But it was a lot of fun and I really enjoyed it, mostly probably because of like the whole taboo factor. This is the fact that he's older, like not just a couple years older, but like considerably older. And I don't know, it was just a lot of fun. And it made me happy. It put me in a really good mood because I didn't want to put it down, and it just got me back into wanting to keep reading more, which is what I find romances tend to do whenever I'm in a reading slump. They help me want to read more and get back into that mood. Number 12 is the most beautiful book you've bought so far this year. For this one, I'm going with one that probably everyone has talked about because of how beautiful the cover is, and that is The Court of Miracles by Kester Grant. I love this cover. It is so shiny and so pretty, and I really want to read it because it just looks so magical. I really want to read it because it just looks like it's kind of hypnotizing in a way. So this was, yeah, the most beautiful book I've bought so far this year. I think it's just gorgeous. I love it. And number 13 is what books do you need to read by the end of this year? I have a couple that I would like to get to. One of the main ones would be finishing The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. I, as you can see, have started it, have not yet finished it. I don't know why. I felt like I needed to sit there and actually have like a full-on reading session with it because it is such a chunky book. I do want to actually keep reading it, but I need to be in the mood to actually pick it up again and read it. Because I think this was before I started getting into the slump, or during the slump, because I tried to read it and I was like, no, I'm not in the mood for this right now. But this is one that I would like to finish by the end of this year. That would be nice. I would also like to finish reading Belle by Leslie Pierce, considering, again, also started this. I'm only like 160 odd pages into it, but I really want to read more. I want to read more of her stuff as well this year, if I can try and read more of her stuff this year, because I really enjoy her writing and I like the historical fiction side of it. So I would like to read more historical fiction if I can by the end of the year, but this is one that I would like to finish because I was really enjoying it, but I don't know why I didn't keep reading it. I am just weird like that. And another one that I want to read by the end of this year is Walking by Kim Kelly, and also her new one, which is Her Lovely Words, I believe it is. Yeah, like I said, I want to read more of historical fiction before the end of this year. That would be nice. But other than that, like, I'd like to continue reading books that I've started and haven't finished, but we'll see how I go. I would like to keep reading some more classics. Again, see how we go. I didn't manage to read 1984, so maybe that should be on my list as well. I would also like to read A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. That's another one I should have on my list, but Anyway, to finish this up, I have read a total of 43 out of 52 books this year. So I'm actually going really well with my challenge. I'm proud of myself for that. But yeah, so far this reading year has started off pretty good. I started off the year by doing a lot of rereads for a rereadathon, and that was really good. It was a great way to start the year. Other than that, it's been sort of like a mix. There hasn't really been any books that have just like blown my mind completely. I'm hoping there will be more in the later half of the year. Well, there you go, guys. That is my media book freakout tag. Thank you all for watching and just hanging out, being all cozy with me on this lovely cold Sunday afternoon. I will see you all in the next video, whenever that may be, if I can ever get like a schedule for these things. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!